Hi everyone, welcome to the All About Animals radio show. We are a volunteer-run community radio station dedicated to all animals and those who advocate for them. My name is Nikita Dhawan, and today we have Mark Stratton for the All About Elephants show. He, in addition to being an internationally acclaimed journalist and radio broadcaster, is a very inspirational animal advocate. We had Mark as a guest back in July last year, where he introduced his campaign for the freedom of Bunka, an Asian elephant in the Yerevan Zoo in Armenia. And a lot has happened since July, so we thought it would be nice to have Mark back to give us an update. Thank you so much for joining today, Mark. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very well, and thank you again for the platform to discuss Bunka, because we've got many supporters, and it's really great to be able to update them on exactly what we're doing. So thank you.
It's such an inspirational story, and we likely have new listeners who are hearing Bunka's story for the first time. So can you start by just giving us background about the campaigns and the conditions he's living in?
Yes, exactly. Bunka is a 15-year-old male elephant, so he's quite a young boy still. He is in Yerevan Zoo in Armenia, which is in the Caucasus region of sort of Far Eastern Europe, on the cusp of Asia, and he has been at Yerevan Zoo alone since 2014. So he was taken from his mother, who is in Tbilisi Zoo, when he was 6, and he's been growing up absolutely by himself. There's no other elephant in the zoo. And I first came across Bunka in 2021 when I was on a work assignment out in Armenia, and I'd never seen such a sad-looking elephant. It looked depressed. He's been there a long time by himself. It was freezing cold. There was snow on the ground. I mean, what is a tropical Asian elephant doing in a snowy setting? It's just heartbreaking. And I was struck by just how badly, in such a bad condition, he looked. And so I launched with a friend of mine called Tina. We launched Friends of Bunka earlier last year, and we are advocating for Bunka's release from the zoo, and we've been working towards that at the moment.
Yeah, I've seen videos of his condition. It's absolutely terrible. Like the infrastructure itself, I was surprised it was completely barren. There was no vegetation. And what you mentioned about just the temperature differences was insane. So, and a lot has happened in the last 2 years where the campaign's been running. And I think one of your most significant achievements was the independent scientific evaluation of Bunka's physical and psychological conditions in November. So I think firstly, I just wanted to ask, how did you approach the zoo? Because it said that the zoo was cooperative in the report, and I believe you already established contact with the chairman of the management board. So I was just wondering, did you find that the zoo was sympathetic to the cause, or did you face some resistance regarding this independent report?
Look, what we've done throughout, Nikita, is we've tried to maintain a dialogue with the zoo. So by that way, we have been extremely polite. We've been very science-based. We've been sending them material about how the impact captivity has on elephants, psychologically and physically. And also, we've been suggesting alternatives and asking them to consider releasing Bunka. I mean, our objective is to get him to sanctuary. That we have no other lower tier of objective. And we approached the zoo. The person we've been in contact with, who we believe is the power broker behind the zoo. Can I just say, since I first saw Bunka, we are now on to the 4th zoo director. It continually changes. The city hall owns Bunka as property. I mean, it's a terrible word, isn't it? Owning an elephant, but they own him, and the city mayor has just resigned. So every time we try to put pressure on the administration, it changes, and this is the nature of politics in Armenia. And but there is one constant figure behind the scenes who we believe holds the power behind the zoo, and we've kept a friendly dialogue open with him. We approached him about the inspection. We're not entirely sure if he understood what an inspection meant. He perhaps thought it was just going to be a group of international experts coming over and having a look at Bunka and perhaps making some assessment about his physical conditions. Or maybe they believed that we would come over and find everything was fine. So so they agreed to that, and obviously that's a big step. I know many other people like us who are campaigning to try to free elephants from zoos. Actually, getting the zoo authority to agree to an inspection is difficult, but it was a good first step. And we went over in late May last year. I travelled to give a hand to a character probably well known to many people in the elephant scene, Ingo Schmindiger, who was carrying out the physical assessment of Bunka. And my role there was to take video, and that was going to relate to a psychological assessment, which was done remotely by Dr. Marion Garai and Brett Mitchell. All three of these report writers are members of PREN, the Professional Elephant Network. Right. So we had a fantastic team assembled when we went over there to look at him.
Yeah, I think it's great that you had, some sort of stable source of support in the zoo. I do know that like politics tend to get involved. I know for the Delhi Zoo, yes. It's been difficult to get just an independent investigation, but I think the report itself, like I was just surprised, like it was just so detailed and objective, and it just had it was just really well done. And you talked about the inspection itself. So I just wanted to ask, like, what aspects did it inspect? Like, was it his physical condition, mental condition? Yes. What all did it look at?
Yes. So when we were on the ground, and I said I was purely there observing and shooting the video for the psychological inspection, which was done after we returned back to our respective countries. So what I observed Ingo doing was examining the physical surroundings of Bunka, carrying out a physical inspection of Bunka himself. We were both surprised when we first saw Bunka. He's huge. He is a really big bull, but he's also very, very skinny and gaunt, and that worried us from the start. And shall I tell you what we actually found? Some of the broad outlines of the. So I mean, we were certainly concerned, and the report has borne this out, that we found his body weight was insufficient. He was showing signs of malnutrition. His ribs were noticeable. His backbone was prominent. His head appeared too small to his body size. He had a very weak body posture, which was suggested in the report of an inferior muscular condition. His skin was very dry. Now, this is the second time I've been there and seen no water in his outdoor pool, and there's very little scope for him to have dust baths and those normal elephant behaviors. We also had a video sent to us by supporters in Armenia in the summer, and there was no water in his pool again. And Ingo very carefully worked with the existing keeper there, and to look at his feet. And I mean, Ingo quickly identified his left forefoot nail was cracked, and there was an abscess forming in that. I mean, his hind feet were worn flat. Elephants have profiles on their feet, and they were worn flat through walking around on a hard substrate, and in places concrete, particularly inside his ghastly barn, which is something akin to a dungeon. Both his forefoot nails were rubbing against each other. His eyes were red. Now, Ingo and I observed, we went on our second morning when we went into the zoo. We know the keepers knocked off at 5 o'clock. They finish work, which is fair enough. They've got to go home to families, etc. And they can only do what they're paid to do. But we saw him let out 10 o'clock next morning. So he'd been inside a barn for 17 hours. And before the keepers came, Ingo and I went up to an observation point and looked down on him. He was walking round and round and round in circles. He'd run out of food inside this awful, airless, dark enclosure There is no way of him to actually sleep lying down. There was no sand in there. There was no piles of straw or hay or something he could lie on. So he spends the whole night walking round and round. We also inspected the enclosure as well. And there is virtually no enrichment. So an enrichment is supposed to bring some aspect of an elephant's life in terms of their daily activities. And there's one standing upright, which wasn't being used. No water. There was no pile of sand outside. So it's there was a what they call a boomer ball, where you put fruit inside these giant balls. And I actually observed him while I was filming outside. I observed him just toss it over the fence. He picked it up and threw it out. So his behavior didn't look good. We observed him outside in this very small enclosure, unstimulating small enclosure, and he was listless and bored. We saw very little browse being added to his diet. I think psychologically, I mean, let me quote you. I've got it here. Here's an assessment because of the videos of how he looked when we actually had this reported on by our two scientists back in South Africa. He spends most of his time waiting for the next food to be given or looking for something to do. And this is hour by hour, day by day, month by month, year by year. Given that for over 17 hours per day during winter, Bunka is locked up in a concrete room, it is surprising he has not become more aggressive or shown more abhorrent behaviors. No amount of enrichment, even if there were any, can adequately provide the mental and physical stimulation of relief from suffering for Bunka. It's not good.
No, yeah, I think what you're talking about, like the key factor is just that boredom. And I also read like the term vacuum behavior is where he's like going through motions, but there's no achievable goal. And, that's because of that lack of enrichment. And I think I'm guessing a lot of that is also due to the fact that he's just been alone for so long and solitary. And, males are typically believed that they don't require the company of other elephants, but the report refutes that and says that, Bunka was also taken prematurely from his mother, whereas, elephants need 10 to 12 years with their family. So that's, I guess, that lack of social environment is also affecting his behavior. And I was also just back to like the physical condition. I think the temperature difference was just like very alarming to me, because I saw that like the average temperature in the winters is from like -7 to -34 degrees, whereas he's used to a tropical condition with like high 20 degrees. So I think that was just like very alarming.
It's very alarming, Nikita. And the zoo maintains the services of a so-called elephant welfare expert. For us, he's a fraud. And he posted something on YouTube recently showing enrichment for Bunka. He'd actually built a little snowman. Okay, so the irony here, you get the irony here, don't you, of an elephant being given a snowman with some fruit stuffed in it. And you think, I mean, this is ridiculous.
I know.
That is enrichment. That is torture. I mean, it's just incredible. If this is an animal which requires a warm tropical environment, being given a snowman, and that's called enrichment. I mean, the scientists in the report talk about he displays few other actions other than feeding, which is true. And look, we think he's relatively well fed. And don't get me wrong, the two carers, the main primary carers for him, are not well trained, but they do care for him. And there was a very touching when Ingo and I left. One of the keepers said, if he does go to Cambodia, which is one of our objective sanctuary areas, could I go with you? And it felt to me almost like a tacit realization that Bunka didn't need that life. Yeah, and we were very moved by that, and they try their best. But otherwise, we just saw these walking stereotype behaviors. We saw a little bit of leg movement, which suggested moving backward from side to side. Indecision, nervousness, deprived of cognitive stimulation. it's, outside, no scratching post, water, mud wallow, big heaps of sand. It's extremely worrying, and obviously we worry for how much longer he can continue with this. We all know that elephants don't particularly have long lives in zoos, in zoo captivity, and particularly for males. And he does come into muss. So they seem to start quite early for Bunka, and the psychological effect of being alone again in that state. It's pretty worrying, actually. So yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about like the caretakers. I completely agree. It's not about villainizing the zoo, and I really appreciate how you've been like keeping them in the loop and really interacting with them. And you also mentioned, Cambodia as a solution. And the report had outlined several options and recommendations for Bunka. And I believed it also advised against importing more elephants. So I just wanted to understand your perspective and assessment on the future of Bunka. What do you think is the most feasible option?
Well, can I say, and I'll update supporters on this, because we've had support. I mean, we're massively grateful for all our support on social media, and I think a few people have suggested, why are we not perhaps launching Twitter storms, or et cetera. But at the moment, we still have an open dialogue, and I can tell you, I can reveal this week we've had a fairly significant conversation with this person we believe to be the power broker at the zoo, and we feel the message has got home about the state of Bunka and some of the solutions that need to occur. Whether this happens or not, it's not necessarily in this man's power. But it was for us. It was a great chance to sit down and talk to somebody and really reiterate. And he listened for sure. Whether this relates into any action, I don't know. But we've got that channel open at the moment. So just to reassure supporters, we are talking actively to the zoo about this situation. So, so in terms of what we would like to plan, I mean, we have. We've had a couple of offers. Right? We would like to see. We believe Bunka originates, and we've had this confirmed by several experts. As an Asian elephant, he's probably from the northern Thai, Laos, Cambodia region. We would like him to go to sanctuary. We would like him to experience the sort of life that Cavan is now leading. We have spoken with, and I can say that we have spoken with Elephant Nature Park and Derek Thompson, Lex Chyler, who we all know is this wonderful elephant conservationist from Elephant Nature Park in Northern Thailand, about him potentially going to Cambodia Wildlife Sanctuary, where Cavan is. This would be our ultimate game. We've also had another very kind offer from a sanctuary down in the south of Thailand as well. Which is great to have a few options. Yeah. Our next step is going to be showing the zoo exactly what can be achieved in terms of rehabilitating an elephant's zest for life and its physical condition by giving it a chance to exist in its home range habitat. So this is the kind of objective we're looking at now. But it's also for us about explaining to them, because if you see an elephant as a tangible asset, something which is of value to you. Look, can I just say, during the 2 days Ingo and I were there, we saw 10 people. So I was outside videoing. It was freezing cold, admittedly. Yeah. And I saw 10 people come past. There was three of them were like a family of I think they were Russian visitors, and they just tossed some popcorn over the fence. And this is Bunka's lot. I mean, he doesn't come out a lot. He comes out, wanders around, stands around, does nothing, just looks depressed, and then wanders back in. So, in terms of an asset, we all get this argument, don't we? How people don't get a chance to travel to countries like continents like Africa or Asia and see wild elephants, and they want to learn about them. But actually, what interest is there in actually seeing a depressed elephant who goes in and out of its miserable enclosure standing there looking fed up. And what do they learn? What do they learn? What do they actually learn about that? And so, for us, we've also been discussing with them about ways they could compensate if Bunka was to go to the sanctuary he so richly deserves. And there's been some wonderful technology we've been watching. I think you've posted some, Nikita, on the robotic elephants. What a great attraction that would be. You could put a whole herd in the in his enclosure, which would be something really stimulating and interesting for children to come and see. And also, perhaps the zoo transforms itself to say like an eco park. Some of the zoos in Argentina are doing this. They're getting rid of their elephants and they're transforming towards let's say a park which reflects local flora and fauna. And I can tell you, if I went to Armenia as a first-time holiday visitor, would I go to a zoo to see tigers, lions, elephants, giraffes, etc.? Well, I've got those in my own country. Would I actually specifically go to a zoo to see those things? No, I wouldn't. I want a more Armenian experience or a more local experience. And if I heard there was an eco park reflecting the really rich flora and fauna this really lovely country has, and Armenia is a lovely country with great wildlife. If there was a park reflecting that, I'd most certainly, as a visitor, I'd want to see that. So we try to talk to them about the options, because I mean, look, one of the things hanging around at the moment is word has been put out that they want to build a larger enclosure, and they want to bring in more elephants to keep Bunka company. We're against that. I've actually heard the term used. They want to bring Bunka a female so he can be married. I mean, for me, this is kind of like an infantile approach to elephant social welfare development. And we just don't want to see any elephants going into that enclosure. We don't want to see any elephants brought into a perishingly cold climate to suffer the same level. And the report outlines the fraught difficulties of actually bringing in a male and female elephants don't live together. Yes, bachelor herds, males can live together, but there can also be tensions, particularly if an animal is stressed and potentially aggressive. We could end up with something really nasty there. Herd of elephants is just ludicrous. And when we were in Armenia, Ingo and I were doing press. We had a lot of press coverage when we were out there, which was great. And you get lots of strange. They've got a science director, and he challenged me. One of the interviews, he said, "Oh, but you can't transport Bunka, because you can't transport elephants." This is the same person who's talking about transporting elephants into Yerevan Zoo.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can't transport them elsewhere. So we have sent them examples of some of the elephants, the transportation, like, for instance, Global Elephant Sanctuary over in Brazil, and also obviously the case of Kavan leaving Islamabad. So hopefully soon Noor Jahan as well. The poor, this is breaking my heart. It's so painful to watch the videos coming out of Karachi. So.
Yeah, that's definitely a terrible situation. And I think like bringing more elephants, like you mentioned, it doesn't solve the problem. It's just you keep captivating elephants, and that's exactly what like this campaign is advocating against for. And the report also says that it's not guaranteed that these elephants will get along. You can't just put a male and female together, and because their social bonds are really complex. And in that perspective, it's just even higher cost for the Armenian Zoo because they have to build those extra enclosures. But it's I don't think that solution makes any sense as well. And I mean, what you said about compensating with like the holographic elephants, I think that's a really cool solution. And I had talked to Kushbu from PETA about the robotic elephants and being used in the temples, and they looked like very real. So I think those solutions are definitely worth looking into. And I think the report was published in February. So when can you expect a response from the zoo or any like next steps on that end?
Yes. Okay. So we have had a response from the person on the board who we've been dealing with as our main point of contact.
Mhm.
Initially, he was a little bit guarded, but then after some more emails from us, he agreed to a meeting, which we've just had in the last few days. So we are talking behind the scenes. In terms of, as I said, the problem is at the moment is yet again, we have no zoo director. The last zoo director was a man with no interest or experience in animal welfare or any animal per se. So we've got no zoo director at the moment to target, and we have no mayor, and that's the important post here because the city owns the zoo animals. We've got no mayor to deal with. We're hoping for. We want to find out. Obviously, we hope to find out soon, and we've built up some very good contacts in Armenia, and not least one of the past zoo director, who's been fantastic and fully supports our campaign. And we wish that person was still in post at the zoo, but that person who tried to make changes was removed. Because they wanted to make changes. So we've got some contacts out there who will hopefully inform us soon who takes over the role and who takes over the city mayor's role, because ultimately these are the people we're going to have to get through to regarding any future action to Bunka. But at the moment, we are having conversations with somebody very influential at the zoo, and that's ongoing. So timeline, some of the our fellow campaigners, like our friends at Edmonton, trying to rescue poor Lucy, know that this can be a frustratingly long process. It's also kind of, you have to try and avoid that feeling that somehow they're being targeted, and it's a sense of pride. How dare foreigners come in and tell us to surrender our elephant. This is part of our heritage. This is part of our country, and obviously clearly elephants aren't. It may have been, I don't know, 30,000 years ago when we had elephants in London, but that's changed. And so we have to be very careful and tactful, and we will maintain this approach. If we feel that the time is right to change the tactic and be more proactive in terms of maybe going for something like a tweet storm or encouraging letter writing, if we feel the channels have broken down that far and we're getting nowhere, then we'll elevate that. But while the door is open for conversation and negotiation, we intend to continue on that route. That's our plan. And we have also we've been making the report widely known to other organizations. We've had support from organizations like Born Free for the campaign, which is fantastic. We've circulated that report to certain, particularly one organization, I'm not going to name them yet, but who have their fingers to a little bit involved in the process of the zoo at Yerevan. And also EASA, we've been, the zoo does not have EASA membership. They want EASA membership, but they're not deemed fit enough to hold that membership. And we've also approached EASA behind the scenes to say, look, come on, this is the zoo you could potentially support. Look at the conditions this animal is being kept in. And so, we've worked our way around all the sort of places of refuge, if you like. This has been our strategy, to cover all the bases. So we leave them just sitting there, hopefully fairly isolated, with this damning report, and offering them a chance to really redeem themselves in terms of create a really great legacy and for the zoo, a great sense of people admiring it for taking a compassionate stand and releasing Bunka.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a step, in the right direction, that you're engaging in these discussions and getting support. And yeah, these things usually do take time, unfortunately, since you mentioned there are like cultural implications as well. And I definitely wish you the best with that. And, as you mentioned, globally, there's been so much support. You're almost at 82,000 signatures on change.org. Your support from Born Free and PEN and PREN and other organizations. So I just wanted to ask, how has the support been locally with local animal organizations? I know you got some press coverage locally, but just what's the progress with that?
Yeah, it's been I won't say it's been intense. We did a lot of news interviews with mainstream channels out in Armenia, but it's quite hard for us to translate the coverage. We have got some high level conservationists, ex-zoo people backing us, but they're not keen to go public, so we have to accept them on an advisory basis currently at the moment. And we have got supporters. We've been cultivating people who are interested in animal welfare in Armenia. So this is something we're continually trying to update. We sent the report out to a journalist contact. We're hoping she will have galvanized some press coverage, but at the moment we're not sure quite where that is, but we're following up on that. So, I mean, the report is down. It's fact. It's not going to go out of date unless they change the zoo so radically and make him an amazing enclosure and they feed him better, etc. That's not going to change, so they won't go out of date. So we'll continue to try and cultivate. But the key for us now is, with some nerves, we wait to see who will be the new zoo director. And if by some wonderful chance it's somebody who is sympathetic and somebody also who understands zoology, isn't just a business person, then this could be a really big change for us. But it's a bit of a lottery at the moment. So. But hopefully we'll have news soon about, who's actually in charge of the zoo. Be great to know.
Yeah, of course. And I think just since the last time I spoke to you, there's just been so much progress. We're all rooting for Bunka, and I'm sure all our listeners feel for him. So can you just tell us, what can the listeners do to help, and how can they just support the campaign as of now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the moment, and I say this: we want people's voices to speak out on this, and certainly circulating the posts we put out, and is a great help, and supporting the posts we put out. This is all we can do at the moment in terms of engaging our supporters while we take this, let's say, this negotiatory stance, which is of working with the zoo behind the scenes. Keep faith with us. We're doing our absolute best here, and we hope this tactic will work. But if it doesn't, I promise you, we will ask people to raise their voices for Bunka, as they've done in your fantastic campaign, and as the wonderful people at Edmonton are doing to fight for Lucy's rights as well. So keep supporting us, and when we really need to hear your voice, let's say perhaps emailing the zoo, etc.
Yeah.
But as I said, at the moment, we sent emails to, for instance, we've sent letters to the administration of the Armenian government, and you just won't get a response. It's very difficult. So you need to have a targeted person. Those targets will be the city mayor and the zoo director, which are not in place at the moment. So watch this space, supporters, and we are hugely grateful for all the messages of support we get, because we remain determined to free Bunka.
Yes, and we'll have all the links to your petition and campaign in the description. So we encourage all the listeners to check that out. And I mean, just again, Mark, your work and your journey, these efforts are so inspiring. We hope that the listeners feel inspired to tune into Bunka's story and advocate for the rights of animals. So again, I just wanted to thank you again for joining us again today.
Yeah, and thank you very much again to the station for actually, giving me a chance to articulate where we're at. We're extremely grateful to you, and good luck with Shankar as well. We're rooting for him to find a better life one day. So, and we know you're doing your absolute utmost. So fantastic.